In my previous video, I was talking about Sabian symbols as pictures that make you think and want to understand them. Now I have a question. If a symbol shows a certain kind of experience, what happens when time meets that symbol? Or if a symbol is tied to a degree and degrees don't change, how does the meaning of the symbol grow or change over time? Does the symbol cause the event, or does the event reveal the symbol? Astrology does not impose meaning upon time. It reveals patterns through which meaning becomes visible. And just as an oracle card may appear at a particular moment and describe that moment, a transiting planet describes or illuminates the symbolic image of a degree. Now, the symbol was always there, time simply turned the light toward it. If Sabian symbols describe the language of becoming, then transits and progressions describe the grammar of time. We do not move through symbols alone. Symbols move through us, shaping perception, response, and experience. So we don't have to ask if symbols are active, but whether we are paying attention when they are activated. First, let me say a couple of words about transits and progressions. Now, when people talk about transits and progressions in astrology, they're really talking about two different ways of understanding change over time. Transits are the real-time movements of the planets in the sky and how they interact with the planets in our birth chart. At the moment we are born, the planets occupy specific positions and specific degrees. That, let's call it a snapshot of the sky, becomes our birth chart and our personal blueprint. But the planets do not stop moving after we are born. They continue traveling through the zodiac, forming new angles, what we call aspects, to our natal planets. And when a moving planet forms an aspect to a planet or point in our birth chart, this is called a transit. Transits describe external timing. They show what kinds of experiences, opportunities, challenges, or developments are occurring in our lives during a specific period. So, for example, if transiting Saturn makes a conjunction to one's natal sun, one may experience a period of increased responsibility, pressure, or maturation. If transiting Jupiter trines Venus, one may experience growth, ease, or joy in relationships or finances. Now, the speed of the planet involved also matters. Now, slower moving planets like Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto tend to correlate with longer, more formative phases of development. Now, their transits can last months or even years, shaping broader chapters of life. Faster-moving planets usually describe shorter-term moods, events, or shifts in focus. Conceptually, transits are associated with outer circumstances, environmental pressures, concrete events, and moments when certain themes in the birth chart become activated. Now, in predictive astrology, they function primarily as a timing tool, helping to identify when particular potentials in the natal chart are likely to become more visible or tangible. Basically, transits describe what the planets are doing now and how that affects the plan that was set for us when we were born. Now, progressions are different. They're not based on the planets' current positions in the sky, but on a symbolic timing method derived from the birth chart. And the most common system is called secondary progressions. Now, in this system, one day after birth corresponds to 1 year of life. So, for example, to understand what is unfolding in one's life at the age of 30, we examine the planetary positions 30 days after one's birth. Progressions describe inner development. They reflect psychological growth, emotional evolution, and the gradual unfolding of personality over time. For instance, when one's progressed moon changes sign, it usually marks an emotional shift or the beginning of a new life phase. When one's progressed sun changes sign, it may indicate a change in identity, direction, or overall life focus. So progressions show how we grow and change internally over time. The key difference between transits and progressions is this. Now, transits describe external events and timing, what is happening around us. Progressions describe internal development, what is changing within us. Transits are based on the real sky in the present moment. Progressions are symbolic, mapping how the birth chart unfolds across the lifespan. You could say that transits are like the weather. They describe the conditions outside. And progressions are like the seasons of the soul. They reveal long-term inner cycles and personal evolution. Now, important life events may occur when both techniques converge. when an outer transit activates something that is already developing internally through progressions, and that is when timing becomes quite powerful. Historically, the use of transits was visible in Hellenistic astrology, where planetary movements were observed in relation to natal charts for predictive purposes. The idea that ongoing celestial motion interacts dynamically with the birth chart is rooted in traditional astrological practice. Now, progressions, especially secondary progressions based on a day for a year principle, develop more clearly in later astrological traditions. And while symbolic time techniques existed in earlier systems, such as primary directions, the modern system of secondary progressions was more fully developed in the late medieval and early modern periods and later refined in 19th and 20th century astrology. In contemporary practice, both methods are integrated or used together, especially within psychological and evolutionary approaches to astrology, where the distinction between inner development and outer circumstance has become theoretically central. A natal placement describes structural potential. The Sabian symbol associated with the natal degree represents the qualitative field within which that planetary function operates throughout life. A transit occurs when a moving planet forms an aspect to a natal placement or occupies the same degree. So when a transiting planet enters the degree of a natal placement, the Sabian symbol of that degree may be experienced more intensely. So suppose someone has Mercury at 18 degrees Taurus. Now, Sabian symbol is a woman airing an old bag through the open window. Now, this may change a bit depending on the author. Now imagine Uranus transiting that degree. Now, the natal symbol suggests clearing accumulated mental material, basically getting rid of ideas or things we used to believe. And when Uranus transits this degree, we might suddenly understand something and want to learn more. Now, the event is not caused by the symbol. It is more like the transit reveals the symbolic potential inherent or what is possible in the natal chart. In secondary progressions, the chart symbolically advances 1 day for each year of life. Now, the progressed moon moves approximately 1 degree per month, so it shifts into new symbolic territory on a regular basis, quite often. So, for example, progressed moon moves into 5 degrees Capricorn. Sabian symbol is Indians on the warpath, while some men row a well-filled canoe, others on it perform a war dance. Now, the image by itself is confrontational and decisive, and when activated by progression, it may indicate a period requiring strategic assertion or setting boundaries. So, unlike transits, which stimulate from without, progressions describe interior maturation and shifting psychological orientation. Plato wrote in his dialogue Timaeus, "Time is the moving image of eternity." If this is so, then transits and progressions mark moments when that moving image sharpens, revealing symbolic clarity. So what we call or experience as destiny may simply be the unfolding of symbolic potentials as they interact with circumstance and choice. Natal or birth chart can be described as a frozen moment at the time of birth. But life does not remain frozen. We move, the planets move, and the zodiac is not a static map. It functions more like a clock marking the unfolding of experience. And to see how this works, we do not need decades. We need only a few steps of the zodiac. So let's take 3 consecutive degrees of Libra, a sign associated with balance, relationship, and self-definition through others. Step 1. First degree Libra. A butterfly made perfect by a dart through it. This is an image of beauty arrested, something refined yet fixed. Symbolically, this degree speaks of awareness through contrast, the moment when form becomes visible because it is defined. It is the recognition of self as object, as image. Step 2. Second degree of Libra, the light of the 6th rays transmuted to the 7th. Now the image expands beyond the personal. We move from individual form to evolutionary continuity. This symbol suggests transmission, something being carried forward, refined, translated. So identity begins to stretch beyond the present moment. And step 3, third degree of Libra. The dawn of a new day reveals everything changed. Here we can see awakening. Realization, not rupture or drama. The environment is the same, but the perception has shifted. A new orientation becomes possible. So in only 3 degrees, 3 years of a progressed sun or 3 weeks of a quick transit, we move from form to transmission to realization. This is how time unfolds symbolically. And to see how symbolic maturation unfolds, we can also look at Scorpio. Now, this sign is usually reduced to themes of crisis or intensity. But Scorpio, in fact, describes a structured developmental process, exposure, dissolution, and reconstruction. So let's examine 3 consecutive degrees at the beginning of Scorpio, like we did with Libra. First degree of Scorpio, a sightseeing bus filled with tourists. So at first glance, this image appears out of place with Scorpio's reputation. It depicts observation, not immersion, and distance rather than entanglement. Symbolically, this degree represents becoming aware of deeper complexity, seeing and understanding more, but from a safe distance, without fully stepping into it. So maturation begins with perception, not with transformation. At this stage, intensity is viewed, but not yet embodied. The bus moves through the terrain and the passengers remain protected and safe. Second degree Scorpio, a broken bottle and spilled perfume. Now here, containment fails. Perfume represents concentrated essence, something refined, volatile, and penetrating. When the bottle breaks, its contents disperse irreversibly into the environment. Symbolically, this degree suggests release of what was once held in reserve, the loss of controlled boundaries, essence becoming atmosphere, and the impossibility of returning to prior containment. What we saw from a distance is now around us. We have to deal with it, we cannot just watch. So maturation or growth at this stage comes through exposure. We are no longer spectators. And third degree of Scorpio, neighbors help in a house, raising party in a small village, or a house raising. Now this third image introduces structure after rupture. Now we move from breaking apart to building something new. A house raising is a communal act, deliberate construction requiring cooperation and effort. And it is not spontaneous, it is organized. Symbolically, this degree indicates reconstruction after dissolution, integration of previously released forces, power directed towards stability, and shared responsibility. Now, this is not restoration of what was lost. It is the creation of something more durable, shaped by prior experience. Now, the movement from one degree to the next is rarely dramatic in isolation, but over time it can reveal patterned maturation. Symbols do not describe isolated events. They describe stages within unfolding structure. When time activates a degree, it invites participation in that stage of development. Again, time does not pass through symbols, it unfolds through them. So across 3 degrees, we see a logical progression, from observation to exposure to reconstruction. This is maturation in symbolic form. Heraclitus said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice." The river flows, and so does consciousness. Each degree may appear fixed, but the experience of that degree is never identical upon return. Scorpio, then, is not inherently destructive. It is transformative through structured integration. The degree changes by one. Consciousness changes by stage. I considered using the natal chart of Aleister Crowley as an example. Many years ago, I wrote an entire essay on this topic, analysis of his chart and its esoteric implications. His astrological and esoteric work or magical corpus is substantial, complex, and layered, and I have spent a great deal of time studying it. However, Crowley's life and chart are symbolically dense and invite a wide range of interpretations. Doing them justice would require an entirely separate presentation. Today, my focus is purely on technical demonstration rather than biographical or psychological complexity. Crowley's chart carries a darker, intense, and psychologically dramatic tone, and it requires somewhat careful handling. His persona tends to evoke strong reactions, admiration, skepticism, or outright rejection, which can easily shift attention away from the technical principles I want to illustrate. Now, personally, I find some of his methodological innovations useful, others not so much. My engagement with his work has been selective rather than devotional. When I was younger, I found the foundational text of Thelema really interesting as it is strongly influenced by Egyptian mythology, esoteric traditions, and Kabbalah. But my approach differs in emphasis and method. It has shifted toward a more analytical and structurally grounded perspective. Okay, that is it for today. If you have any questions, ideas, or thoughts, let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you soon. Bye!